Hey everybody, this is Dax, you are you, and if you want to become a rock and roller, it's a long way to the top. There are four great things that have come out of Australia in the last 50 years, besides the greatest sense of humor on planet Earth, that Aussie attitude. I love the Aussies. Got some Aussie friends, always funny, always witty, but then they came out the big ones that came out, Olivia Newton-John, yeah, I love Olivia, In Excess, the Bee Gees, and yes, AC/DC, pure rock and roll juice. AC/DC is probably the only rock and roll band, I think they are, that never did a love song. These guys don't do love. No, they do rock and roll, pounding, steroid, rock and roll. And for that, they're the best of all time. Yeah, if you want to go to Led Zeppelin, there's a little bit more depth in their ability, their musical ability. A little bit more like grind in them. But AC/DC is just pure rock and roll. I was a late teenager when they made it big in the United States in the late 70s and early 80s. And their best frontman was Bon Scott. Brian Johnson, hat tip to Brian. He was amazing. But Bon Scott was a god. He was a rock and roll voice god. He's from Scotland. He came over to Australia when he was a kid, just like the Young brothers, Malcolm and Angus Young on guitar. They came over on an advertisement in Scotland. Scotland had its worst winter snowstorm, one of the worst ever in 1963. So the family brought the Youngs. They have several brothers and sisters. Brought them to Australia in '63 when Malcolm was 10 and Angus was 8. And so they and Bon Scott were Scottish Australians, which is kind of interesting that Bon ended up being their lead singer after their previous lead singer dropped out. Bon actually had been their chauffeur for a little bit before becoming their lead singer, which is hilarious. Bon is probably the funniest guy in the group, maybe the funniest frontman ever. Just so much fun. And those vocals, he's got the vocals. So you got Phil Rudd on drums. The bass guitar has been done by Mark Evans and Cliff Williams and I think a few others. Anyway, these guys are the juice, and they started in Sidney in '73 before Bon Scott. Bon joined them in '75, I think it was, and their very first big song was the one we're about to watch. It's A Long Way to the Top. If you want to rock and roll, this is just really hilarious, showing off their personalities, their early personalities. This is on a flatbed truck in, I think, Sidney in '75, and they introduced the bagpipes on this. Bon Scott knew how to play the bagpipes. That's a great story on how that got introduced. I'll tell that story some other time. Bon going down to a store and buying the bagpipes because Brian Johnson, their manager, said that it'd be good to have bagpipes. It's a great story in itself. But anyway, so it's them on a flatbed truck, and then they brought in some other bagpipe guy, the real dudes, the bagpipe Scottish guys, to help out on this. This is a lot of fun. The video itself is very low quality, unfortunately, but it's the best that they had at the time. I think it's 250 resolution. So anyway, let's just watch and enjoy these dudes, these Aussie dudes, have some fun on the back of a flatbed truck in '75. Do It's a Long Way to the Top, baby. That voice. Oh my God, I just don't even know. I've never been able to describe that voice, but it just goes right through you. I mean, it's just this, God, it's almost like some weird musical instrument that Bon Scott has. And those guitars, I mean, it's just pure grinding rock and roll.
Going to a show, stopping on the byways, playing rock and roll, getting robbed, getting stoned, getting beat up, broken bones, getting had, getting took. I tell you folks, it's harder than it looks. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. If you think it's easy doing one night stands, try playing in a rock roll band. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll.
Yeah, I just want to stop and say, what other band has the kind of sense of humor and creativity to bring freaking bagpipes into a rock song and it sounds like they should be there? I mean, this is just amazing. What an amazing integration into the song. And I mean, God, I just love it. I have to apologize that at the beginning I didn't have my microphone in front of me, so the sound wasn't very good. But anyway, just amazing. And Bon is going to kick in too here in a second. I mean, seriously, seriously. The musicianship, the playfulness. I mean, it's just, Bon Scott is the best frontman, rock and roll frontman of all time. I mean, he just plays around with the camera. He's having such a good time. I mean, he's just like almost a comic with that voice, that just extraordinary voice that goes right through you. I mean, you had other great frontmen, obviously, Freddie Mercury, David Lee Roth, and many others, but nobody had as much fun, just outright fun, as Bon Scott. There's a version of this, I think he was on an Australian TV show, where while doing this, he jumps off the back by the drums down to the stage, breaks his ankle in the process, and continues the video. He's just, he was born to be in front with that voice and with his Scottish Australian sense of humor. The Scots, by the way, have a great sense of humor, so I could see why he's a great blend of the two. But the musicianship, I mean, Angus and Malcolm are just, I mean, that the guitars are just out of this world fantastic, and the blend of them with Scott's voice and on this song with the bagpipes, it's just like this explosion of sound that comes at you. And Phil Rudd does a great job on guitars. And what I can't believe is that it took them after 3 or 4 years after this video before they gained international stardom. I mean, it took that long. I mean, really, it was Highway to Hell in '79 that came out when they got really big international stardom. And then, of course, Bon Scott died just a few months after that, R.I.P. And then Brian Johnson came in, and then, of course, they did Back in Black, and that became even bigger. But this shows off the guys. The fun, the extraordinary musicianship, and just the charisma. These guys have got charisma, but it's just pure rock and roll. I mean, even now, much older, but even now, their music comes on, and I just got to get up and move. It's hard for me to sit and do a reaction to AC/DC. Anyway, this is my first AC/DC reaction. There's going to be a lot more, mostly Bon Scott, because he's my favorite, but there'll be some with Brian Johnson and the guys also. There's some phenomenal videos of them together as well. But anyway, let me know what you think. And if I have any mistakes in there, just let me know. And if you got any recommendations, let me know as well. But anyway, I'll catch you soon on the backside. Take care of yourselves. Bye now.